Hey, this week I am driving a 2024 Honda Ridgeline Trail Sport. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm not going to talk about this as a truck and really not going to talk about how this handles or anything like that. But I do want to dig into the technology a little bit because some of the tech on this truck is just a little bit outdated in my opinion. There's some really cool stuff here, but there's also some stuff that I think needs an update. And it didn't get it for this year. So, my name is Jill Ciminillo, and let's take a closer look at this week's car du jour. Okay, the first thing I want to do is I want to take a quick look at what I am seeing as the driver. And you know what? We'll just immediately dive into some of the good stuff. So the first thing that is really good is you have a wireless Apple CarPlay system. So what's interesting here is I got into the vehicle, I wired in my phone, so there's a little USB-A charge port right here that would connect your phone to Apple CarPlay. So I plugged in my phone, didn't have time to pair my phone, I just needed to start driving. And it automatically asked me if I would like to pair my phone wirelessly. So I didn't have to do anything other than plug my phone in. And then I said, yes, I would like to use Apple CarPlay wirelessly and set up my phone, wirelessly. And it just did that all from the connection that I made when I plugged in my phone. And I think that is really cool. So I like the fact that you have the option of having wired in Apple CarPlay or wireless Apple CarPlay in this vehicle. Some people, especially those who really like music, like the wired in connection better because you have a better audio transfer and the clarity of your music is a lot better. So the other cool thing that's going on here, as you can see, I do have Apple CarPlay active and I've got my Apple Maps going on. And then when you come into the behind the wheel gauges, yep, it's giving you directions in your cluster as well, telling you when you need to turn. Now, if I were to use Google Maps or Waze, the instructions would not pop up in here, but because I'm using Apple Maps, it transfers from here to here. So then what I can do is I can get out of Apple CarPlay and I can deal with XM radio or FM radio or navigation on here, and my Apple Maps directions still show up in the gauge cluster. And I think that is really cool. Yeah, that's a long suffering sigh you're going to hear here, because that is the extent of the super cool technology that I find on the Honda Ridgeline. So let's just go back to this for a second. This is not a completely digital cluster. So you have like a line that kind of goes right here, and this is your analog gauge, and then this is your digital gauge. And I don't know. I don't know why automakers do that. I feel like it's a little bit weird. I'm sure there is some kind of money savings here, but you've already made half of the cluster digital. How much more is it to make the entire cluster digital? I don't know. I mean, seriously, I don't know. If somebody knows the answer to that, please feel free to comment below. I just think that's a weird choice to have a cluster that is half digital and then half analog. The cluster is essentially analog and mimics an analog cluster, except for this little digital bit right there that speaks to your Apple CarPlay. Now, this right here is the other thing that I think is kind of dated. Now, I don't know that it looks awful. It doesn't look awful, but I'm not a fan of these graphics. They look early aughts. Like this looks like something that was designed in 2000 and never got updated. Which makes it kind of old school, and maybe that's a good thing, but I just, yeah. In a day where, again, this is a digital cluster, this is a software that could be updated, it shouldn't take that much effort, and I just, yeah, not a fan, but that's just me. That is my opinion. What else have we got going on? So you do have your wireless charger here, and I didn't do any super long road trips. I drove out to the suburbs for an hour and back into the city for an hour, and I had my phone in here and I didn't notice it overheating. So that's good. I think it heated up, but it didn't overheat. It didn't say that it had to stop charging. It didn't stop charging my phone. It didn't shut down or disconnect from Apple CarPlay. So all of that is really good stuff. Now, one more thing that I want to point out here, when we were looking at the Acura vehicles, so the TLX and the MDX, we noticed that XM radio was being removed from vehicles, and I had reached out to, from Acura and Honda vehicles, and I'd reached out to the folks at Acura and I'd asked them, did you actually remove XM radio from your vehicles? And apparently with updates, they have started to remove the in-car XM radio button. And their reasoning behind that is they think that it is better for you, the consumer, to download the app on your phone and then utilize Sirius XM radio through Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. So this still has it because it hasn't really received any kind of a huge update in terms of technology or design, but the Honda Accord has ditched the Sirius XM mode button in vehicle, and so has the Acura MDX and the Acura TLX. So just something to be aware of. Yeah, so that is what you have going on kind of behind the wheel and in your display. And this is swipeable. You do have, your trip computer, vehicle settings, general settings, and all that stuff going on. And oh, look, you still have AM radio. Some of the EVs are starting to get rid of AM radio. But it's pretty responsive, and no complaints about how this operates. But yeah, design. All right, now that we are on the road, one of the tech features I want to talk to you about is the auto stop start. So that is, I'm coming to a red light here. I have put my foot completely on the brake and the engine has shut off. So this isn't a super clunky system. It doesn't go, but it does mute your HVAC system a little bit. And here is the bigger problem. Taking my foot off the brake, it took like 2 seconds for the engine to turn back on. So if you were in a hurry, if you were trying to get into a window of traffic and do a really fast maneuver and your engine was shut off, there is just that little bit of a delay that could cause a problem. And I say that as somebody who lives in Chicago, and I very often see my very small window of traffic and I'm like trying to shoot into it, and having that engine shut off and the time that it takes to turn back on when you take your foot off of the brake is slightly problematic. Now, I will say that there are a couple of workarounds, and the biggest one is you do have this button down here below the gear shift that you can just turn the auto stop start feature off, and you're going to have to do that every single time that you get into the vehicle. Now, the other thing that you can do is if you are stopped and the engine shuts down, just take your foot off of the brake a little bit, just enough so you're not moving, but you take your foot off the brake a little bit and the engine will then just pop back on. So you do have options in terms of either turning off the system completely, or when you think you're getting ready to go, or you think the light's getting ready to turn green, just take your foot off the brake a little bit and then your engine will turn back on. It's doable, but annoying. And this system isn't as smooth as some that I've seen, and so yeah, just wanted to mention that. The next tech feature I want to talk about on the Honda Ridgeline is going to be adaptive cruise control. And this is a feature that we see in a lot of vehicles in 2024. And essentially, if you have an older vehicle or if you've not heard of this before, it is cruise control that essentially is modulated by the vehicle. So I've set the cruise at about 2 miles per hour over the speed limit. And what happens is, as I'm cruising, if somebody pulls in front of me and then slows down, the vehicle will automatically slow down. So it is adaptive to the speed of the vehicle in front of you. Or if I'm going, the speed limit or whatever, and come up on a vehicle that is moving slower, it will slow down. So the idea is you're still steering, you have to keep your hands on the steering wheel, but the vehicle will control the speed itself. Now, this is an outdated system in terms of some of the systems that are out on the market right now, and Acura and Honda have started launching, I would say it's a 2.0 system that is a little more current and updated, but this is the older system. And so the first thing I want to say is it does okay. So as long as somebody's not pulling in front of you, like cutting you off, the vehicle does a decent job of slowing down slowly and not like slamming on the brakes to put you in a position to not hit the vehicle in front of you. But if somebody does kind of cut in front of you, it's not seeing on the periphery and it doesn't understand that somebody is cutting in. And so it does end up slamming on the brakes a little bit. And so it's a little bit of an unnatural system. It doesn't drive the way necessarily I would drive. But in most cases, it gets the job done. But it's just a little bit more of a primitive system than what we have seen in some of the newer vehicles. Now, I anticipate when this vehicle gets a tech update, it will get the upgraded adaptive system. But right now, it's just a little bit older. There's one other big problem with this system, and we'll see it when we hit traffic up here, because I know it's coming. All right, I'm seeing brake lights ahead, so I anticipate we will soon come to the moment that is irksome to me. But as you have seen, this did a really good job of slowing the vehicle down, although right there I probably would have slowed down just a little bit faster than what this is telling me to do, but it did it. I didn't get even super close to the person in front of me, but here's the problem. I just hit 20 miles per hour and the system shut off. The system shut off. And to me, that is just not a really good use of adaptive cruise control, because for me, living in a city where I have rush hour traffic all the time, I want adaptive cruise control that goes all the way down to 0. It helps de-stress your commute, but yeah, that I think is a problem with the system, and that makes this a little bit outdated because you can't turn it on below 25 miles per hour, and when you go down below 20 miles per hour, this system just shuts off. If I'm going to have adaptive cruise control, I want it to be active in a stop and go environment. I want it to be active from 0 all the way up to, the speed limits that are on the road. So yeah, I don't like that. It feels outdated to me. All right, the last tech feature that I want to talk about on the Honda Ridgeline is going to be actually the backup camera. And I don't love it, but I don't hate it. There are actually some good things going on here. So let's talk about the good things first. So you have some different camera views depending on what you want to see while you are driving. So from the wide angle to the straight back to the straight down, all of those things can be really helpful, especially like this one if you're going to be towing and you're backing up to a trailer hitch. Very, very helpful angle view. You also have this right here, which is rear cross traffic alert. And that essentially, if you are driving in a parking lot or you're backing out of a space in the parking lot and you maybe can't see because you've got a big vehicle on either side of you and you're backing out and the vehicle senses somebody is coming at you from either side, it'll beep, 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 it'll beep at you and it'll have you arrows showing which side somebody is coming at you from. So I love the rear cross traffic alert. I find that to be incredibly helpful. The other thing that I really like on this is you do have dynamic lines. So as you turn the wheel, it does show the trajectory of where the vehicle will be ending up. However, the problem is this image isn't terribly clear. You don't have an around view monitor. And as you are backing up into a dark space, none of it gets any better. So we're just going to start backing up into my garage. And my neighbor is in there today, so we're going to try to be careful. And that means I'm probably going to have to adjust and readjust a couple of times just because I'm trying to stay as close to the wall as possible without hitting it. All right. See, all of this just looks a little bit fuzzy. And I will also point out that there aren't any backup sensors. So as I'm, backing up into this space, like there's nothing to tell me if I'm getting too close to anything. Like I'm really close to that, you know, the side mirror over there, so we're gonna straighten this out again. But there's nothing to tell me if I'm getting close to the vehicle or the wall, and you know, that is always really helpful in tight spaces, especially when my neighbor likes to park on the line. And I'm feeling really close to their car. But I made it into my space. So then again, like it's dark in the garage, and as I'm backing up, there's just no relief from the darkness. Yeah, so I mean, it's not an awful camera, but it's not great. Okay, in sum, what I want to say about the 2024 Honda Ridgeline is this. I really like the Apple CarPlay integration. I think they did a great job putting your directions in the display in your dash, but pretty much all the other technology, from the digital display itself to the cameras to the adaptive cruise control, is just okay. Yeah. So if you want to know more about this vehicle, stay tuned to the Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk YouTube channel, because I will have another review about this vehicle on that channel. I'm going to be getting into the city worthiness of this midsize truck. And now what I want to say is, if you have gotten this far in the review, I really hope that you have liked the video and that you have subscribed to my channel. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for doing all of the things, and I will see you next time with a new car du jour.